There is a quiet revolution happening in the world of website creation, and most people have no idea how massive the shift really is. For years, website builders and agencies have relied on long work sessions, complicated coding tools, and expensive software to produce decent-looking sites for clients. But everything changed the moment Gemini 3 entered the picture. This upgraded model does not just speed up the process of building a site, it completely reshapes what a website can do, how fast it can be deployed, and how convincingly it can turn a visitor into a paying customer. Many people still think AI-generated websites are basic or generic, the kind of pages you might build in a school project. What they do not realize is that Gemini 3 is capable of producing pages that look indistinguishable from top-tier agency work. With the right strategy, the right prompts, and the right design references, you can build websites that do not only look beautiful but actually convert. And when a website can convert, you can charge thousands of dollars for it. To make this real, Jack Roberts, the creator featured in the original video, gives a powerful context. He is not just teaching theory. He has personally sold websites and automation systems for thousands of dollars. Before that, he built and sold a top 100 UK startup that welcomed over 60,000 users. Now he runs a 7-figure AI automation company using these exact techniques. When someone with that kind of track record tells you that Gemini is a turning point, it is worth paying attention. He positions this guide not just as a tutorial, but as a framework that can help beginners and professionals build websites in minutes that would previously have taken days. And the most important benefit is not speed. It is quality, strategy, and the ability to produce sites that actually drive revenue. The first major principle Jack introduces is deceptively simple but often ignored. Before you open a design tool, before you ask Gemini for layouts, and before you choose fonts or colors, you need a clear strategy. This is the step most people skip, and skipping it is what causes 90% of AI-generated websites to underperform. Strategy means understanding what the website is supposed to accomplish. You are not building a digital decoration. You are building a machine that persuades people to trust you, buy from you, or book a call. Without clarity on what the visitor wants, the rest of the design is guesswork. Jack breaks visitor intent into 3 categories: cold traffic, warm traffic, and outbound. Cold traffic includes visitors discovering you for the first time through ads, search, or social media. They know nothing about you, so the website must work harder. It needs to deliver instant value, teach them something useful, or offer a quick diagnostic tool that helps them understand their own situation better. Warm traffic includes people who already know a bit about your offer. Maybe they saw a video, visited a landing page, or heard about you through someone else. They are easier to convert, but they still need reassurance and clarity. Then there is outbound traffic. These are people you directly reached out to through messages or emails. When someone lands on your site because you contacted them first, the website must focus heavily on trust. Testimonials, case studies, and clear proof matter more than ever. Jack also mentions a concept he learned from Alex Hormozi. Treat warm traffic like cold, and your conversions almost always improve. Cold-optimized websites are simply more persuasive because they do not assume prior knowledge. This focus on traffic type leads naturally into the deeper questions that shape the entire website. What 3 problems are dominating your visitor's life right now? What inaccurate assumptions do they have before they land on your site? What are they unsure about, and what exactly convinced them to click? When websites ignore these questions, the designs feel generic. But when these questions guide the structure, every line of copy feels intentional, every visual serves a purpose, and the entire experience becomes more persuasive. After strategy, Jack moves into the second step in his site framework, interface. This is where design inspiration becomes essential. People often try to ask Gemini for a beautiful website without giving it any visual direction. But without references, Gemini will give you the safest, most predictable layout. If you want a website that looks like it came from a $1,000 design agency, you must feed Gemini the same inspirations human designers use. This is where mood boards enter the process. Jack frequently uses platforms like Dribbble, CodePen, and Mobbin. Dribbble is filled with modern, minimalistic page designs that show how professional designers are approaching typography, spacing, and layout trends. CodePen reveals the underlying animations and interactions that give modern pages their life. Mobin, one of Jack's favorites, provides high-quality screenshots of real web and mobile apps. You can switch between mobile and desktop layouts instantly, giving you a broad visual library of how top companies design their user experiences. Jack's process is methodical but extremely effective. He scrolls through designs until he finds a layout that matches the feeling he wants to create. It might be a soft gradient hero section, a clean grid of testimonials, or a sharp call to action area. He captures these screenshots and moves them into a Canva whiteboard, arranging them into a simple mood board. The mood board does not need to be complicated. It just needs to show Gemini the style you want. This includes the layout, color palette, typography style, spacing, and structure. The mood board becomes a visual map that Gemini uses to generate something remarkably close to professional-grade work. Jack emphasizes something many people overlook. In the real world, design quality directly affects how trustworthy your product looks. When he built his first startup, people assumed he had millions of dollars in funding simply because the design looked polished. This alone increased sales and partnerships. Good design is not decoration. It is a credibility amplifier. Once the strategic foundation is clear and the visual references are prepared, Jack begins crafting the prompt. This is where the real transformation happens. He starts by telling Gemini the core purpose of the website. For example, he might say the site is for a dental agency that uses AI to help dental practices grow. This clarifies the industry, the target audience, and the value proposition. Then he adds stylistic guidelines, pointing Gemini toward the mood board images he collected earlier. He references specific brands he admires, such as Vel, to reinforce the style. He includes detailed visual guidelines from his design cheat sheet, which describe modern web features like subtle animated backgrounds, micro-interactions that give the page personality, dynamic typography that draws the eye, and smooth transitions between sections. He also gives Gemini structural instructions, because structure influences conversions. A high-performing website usually begins with a strong hook, followed by a clear value proposition. Beneath that, it expands on the value with 2 or 3 supporting insights. After that comes social proof, testimonials, or examples of previous results. Finally, it ends with a strong call to action. This formula reflects how people naturally make decisions. First, they decide whether a solution is relevant. Then they check whether it seems credible. Finally, they decide whether it is worth taking action on. This combination of strategy, design references, and structured prompting allows Gemini to produce websites that feel polished, thoughtful, and cohesive. As Gemini processes the prompt, Jack reveals a technique that very few people know about. Instead of relying only on screenshots, you can extract a real website's HTML. By viewing the page source, or using a simple HTML downloader, you can copy the underlying structure and feed it directly into Gemini. This allows Gemini to fully understand the layout, spacing, sections, and hierarchy of the page. Jack clarifies that he does not recommend copying a website for commercial use. Instead, this technique is for educational purposes and for learning how great websites are built from the inside out. When you give Gemini both screenshots and underlying code, it can produce an extremely close reproduction. This is one of the biggest shortcuts for beginners trying to learn professional structure quickly. This technique shortens the learning curve dramatically. Instead of guessing how a high-performing website is organized, you can study its framework and adapt it to your own project. With Gemini's help, you can then transform the structure into a fresh, original design tailored to your client or business. Once Gemini generates its initial version of the website, the real transformation begins. Many beginners assume that the moment Gemini produces something visually appealing, the process is complete. In reality, the first draft is the raw material. It is not the finished sculpture. Jack explains that Gemini's output is usually impressive on the first attempt, but you should think of it as a strong foundation rather than a finished product. Your job is to guide Gemini in the right direction through iterative refinement. This is where understanding the intention behind each section becomes extremely valuable. If the hero banner looks great, but the typography feels slightly off, you can ask Gemini to adjust the font weight or spacing. If the testimonials feel too generic, you can instruct Gemini to write them in a more concrete, results-driven style. If the call to action area feels cluttered, you can request a more minimal layout with stronger visual contrast. Each correction nudges the design closer to a polished, professional standard. Jack emphasizes that this back and forth is not a sign of Gemini being weak. It is exactly how top design agencies work. Designers never get the perfect version on the first try. They move through revisions, each one sharper, more refined, and more aligned with the brand identity. Gemini, when used with this mindset, behaves like a world-class junior designer who can execute changes instantly. The important thing is knowing how to give instructions that adjust design choices with clarity. That clarity comes from the earlier strategic and visual groundwork. Without strategy and mood boards, revisions become guesswork. With them, revisions become precise and purposeful. Jack then shifts the viewer's attention to something that many people overlook. While design captures attention, structure influences conversions far more deeply. He returns to the framework that every effective website must follow if the goal is to produce sales or appointments. The hero section must accomplish 3 tasks immediately. First, it must clearly identify the audience. Second, it must articulate the value proposition in a way that sparks curiosity. Third, it must place an action step front and center. Visitors need to understand if they are in the right place and why the website is worth their time. Without this clarity, even beautiful visuals lose effectiveness. The next section expands on the value proposition by breaking it into digestible, authoritative points. Here, the goal is to help the visitor understand not just what the offer is, but why it matters right now. When you articulate 2 or 3 key insights about the problem the visitor faces, they begin to trust you as someone who understands their situation. This section also acts as a bridge between the initial interest and the deeper trust that comes next. Testimonials or case studies follow because they operate as social validation. Humans trust stories from other people far more than they trust marketing statements. When visitors see proof that real individuals have benefited from your service, they become more comfortable with taking the next step. Jack encourages using varied proof formats such as simple quotes, video clips, screenshots of emails, or even metrics pulled directly from past projects. Gemini can generate these placeholders automatically, but you can later replace them with real content if you are building for a client. Finally, every persuasive site must close with a strong call to action. This section should be impossible to misunderstand. The viewer must know exactly what to do next, why it benefits them, and what outcome they can expect. Jack suggests crafting this part with a tone that feels confident and direct. It should not sound optional. It should sound like the logical next step for anyone serious about solving the problem. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Gemini workflow is how it handles advanced visual features. Jack explains that modern websites rely heavily on subtle animations and micro-interactions that influence how professional the site feels. These include background gradients that shift slowly as the visitor scrolls, buttons that gently expand when hovered over, text that fades in smoothly, and sections that move dynamically to guide the eyes downward. These details make the difference between a website that feels flat and one that feels alive. Jack incorporates these elements in his prompt not because he expects Gemini to replicate every detail perfectly, but because it gives Gemini a sense of the energy and flow he wants the site to have. The prompts are not rigid instructions. They are creative direction. Gemini takes these cues and translates them into real code and layout patterns that produce a modern aesthetic. When Jack sees the first version, he often tweaks the intensity of the animations. Sometimes a transition is too strong and distracts from the message. Other times, the animation is too subtle and needs more presence. With Gemini, making these adjustments takes seconds rather than hours. This is why Gemini stands out from previous models. It understands the combination of visual design, user experience, and development logic. It does not view design as separate from code. It treats them as parts of the same creative process, just like a professional designer would. When Jack works with clients, he follows a pattern that viewers can easily adopt. After generating the initial website in Gemini, he packages the layout, assets, and code into a deployable form. This is where AI gives freelancers and beginners a powerful advantage. Instead of hand-coding layouts, manually adjusting spacing, or building components from scratch, you can focus on perfecting the experience. Gemini does the heavy lifting with the structure and styling, while you apply final touches to ensure everything fits the client's goals. Jack often exports the generated code into tools like Webflow, Replit, or any hosting platform that supports HTML. In Webflow, for example, you can use the code as a starting point and then map each element into Webflow wrappers. This allows you to take advantage of Webflow's built-in CMS features, hosting, and SEO tools. Another option is using Framer, which supports custom code embedding and offers quick deployment capabilities. The point is that Gemini gives you professional code instantly, and you then integrate it into your workflow. This efficiency is what allows Jack to charge premium prices for his work. Clients are not paying for hours. They are paying for results. If you can deliver a site that looks like it cost thousands to build, the client does not care whether it took you 3 hours or 3 days. They care that it works, feels premium, and makes their business look credible. Gemini empowers creators to meet that expectation consistently. Jack explains that websites are no longer just digital brochures. When paired with tools like Gemini, they become automated sales systems. This means that the site can handle the first stage of customer interaction without human involvement. Instead of manually explaining your offer in every email or message, you can build a site that does the explaining for you. The website becomes your first impression, your credibility builder, and your conversion engine. In many cases, Jack's websites include embedded AI elements such as interactive assistants, personalized recommendations, or mini diagnostic tools. These AI additions give the visitor a tailored experience, increasing the chance they will take action. These embedded AI features are simple to create. Gemini can generate them directly using JavaScript or API calls. For example, Jack often adds a mini chat assistant that asks a few questions and then recommends a service package based on the visitor's answers. This makes the experience feel personal and engaging. It also positions the site far above traditional static pages. Jack emphasizes that anyone can learn this system. You do not need a design background or a coding background. What you need is a strong prompt, a clear mood board, and an understanding of structure. Gemini handles the technical execution. The learning curve is much smaller than most people think. Beginners often produce websites that look more professional than those created by freelancers with years of experience, simply because Gemini accelerates the creative process. With enough practice, you can consistently produce high-ticket, client-ready websites in under an hour. Jack's advice is to start with simple projects and gradually improve your prompting and design selection. His own journey reflects this. The first time he discovered mood boards, he realized how much easier it became to direct AI. The moment he began studying real HTML structures, his skills jumped again. When he began combining strategy, design references, copywriting principles, and structural frameworks, his results improved dramatically. The system he teaches is not about shortcuts. It is about combining the foundational elements of great web design with the speed of modern AI. Jack concludes the process by emphasizing how transformative Gemini is for freelancers, entrepreneurs, agencies, and creators. With Gemini, building a website is no longer a technical challenge. The real skill lies in understanding business goals, crafting persuasive messaging, choosing strong design references, and knowing how to direct the AI effectively. If you master these skills, you can build a real business around creating AI-enhanced websites for clients or for your own brand. He reminds viewers that the tools will continue to evolve, but the core principles remain the same. Strategy creates relevance, design creates trust, structure creates conversions, and Gemini ties them all together into a fast, powerful process that anyone can learn. If you follow the site framework consistently, you can go from absolute beginner to high-value website creator faster than most people think possible. Jack encourages viewers to take action by experimenting with the methods, building their first mood board, running their first Gemini prompt, and refining the results step by step. The sooner you practice, the sooner you will discover how powerful this workflow really is. He closes by reminding viewers that the tools will only get more advanced from here. Now is the time to learn them, apply them, and turn them into something profitable. He finishes with a clear call to action. Like the video, share it with others, and subscribe for more AI-driven strategies.